Welcome to the Tech Sales Funnels podcast, where we dive deep and answer the ultimate question, how did you hack into tech sales? Each week, we bring you inspiring stories, proven strategies, and insider tips from top performers who've cracked the code to break into tech sales and thrive. Whether you're just starting out, making a career pivot, or ready to level up, this is your go-to space for actionable advice and real-world success stories. Let's crack the code together, because hacking into tech sales isn't just a dream, it's your next move. Now with your host, the founder of Tech Sales Funnels and the tech sales hacker himself, Dayvisson DaSilva.
All right, everyone, welcome again to the Tech Sales Funnel podcast. I'm super excited today. I have been talking to Ryan Weems. He is an amazing tech seller. He has done an amazing job, and his story is top 1%. It's amazing. I am super excited for you to hear where he came from, what he's doing now, and how he hacked his way into tech sales. So I'm going to bring him to the stage. He's going to introduce himself a little bit more, and we're going to dive into the questions. So here we go. Ryan.
Hey, Dayvisson, thank you for having me. Ryan Weems here for all you guys that are watching. Just wanted to say that I'm so happy to be on the Tech Sales Funnel podcast. Dayvisson and I go back a little bit, and happy to share my story.
Thank you so much. And we're both in Dallas. We could have done this in person. But
Yeah, we could have.
Right?
We should do that maybe next time for part two. We'll do that one in person.
There you go. Next one will be live and in person. So thank you so much, Brian. I was just reviewing your LinkedIn again. I know you a little bit about your story, but tell us a little bit about you. I know you're a busy dad, like just high level in general. Who's Ryan Weems? And we're gonna dive into the whole tech sales. How did you get into tech sales? I see the American flag there. I know you're a big patriot of this country. I'm an immigrant, first immigrant. I love USA, and
Nice.
and I appreciate all the work you have done on the military as well. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Ryan, like I said, but no, most importantly, there's two titles that I hold that are the near and most dearest to my heart, and that's husband and father. I'm a girl dad times two. I've got a daughter, 9 years old, and another daughter that's 7. Well, actually, in July, they'll be 7 and 9. They keep me busy. They play club soccer, been married to my wife. We will be celebrating about 10 years together in February.
Man,
So we're about to hit
nice.
the double digits. Super excited about that. But prior to getting into tech sales, I was in, United States Navy. I served as a hospital corpsman, Fleet Marine Force, attached to the infantry Marines for the majority of my time in. So did just over 8.5 years, and got to say that was, probably the best time of my life. I joined a little bit later than most do. Most kids join, when they're coming out of high school right at 18. As you can see on my LinkedIn, if you dare to go back as far, you'll see that I worked at UPS, where I worked up my way to being a manager, so in the logistics space. Pretty cool story there. I helped close one of the largest deals there back in the day when DHL pulled out of the U.S. and there was a mad grab for all this territory between FedEx and UPS. They actually took some folks who were on the night sword to go watch DHL boxes and make some connections and help those account executives drum up some business that way. So that was pretty cool. And then I went into sales with a company called Fastenal. They sell fasteners. They sell nuts, bolts, all the things that you need to build up these beautiful buildings that we're in. And that's kind of when I really got my chops at, kind of going job site to job site, looking for business and doing some like old school, hunting, if you will.
Door knocking, yeah.
Yeah, real door knocking, going to a business, walking in, leaving flyers, leaving business cards, and praying for that call back. And did well there. Got moved up to management, so I ran a branch. I had some outside sales reps that I led and trained, and that was cool. But I had always had this itch of just serving. And I lived in Italy when 9/11 happened, and my folks were active duty at the time.
Oh, wow.
And I remember vividly being on a bus, and a young 18-year-old Marine was tasked with, being on the school bus with us as we got escorted from our housing quarters to the base to go to school. And I really, really, really wanted to join. I wouldn't say that I really wanted to fight, but I really wanted to join and serve my country. And at the behest of my parents, my dad had really asked me not to at the height of the war. maybe try college. I did that, and for a couple of years, just kind of it was an itch that I really wanted to scratch. I was living in Seattle at the time, so I joined, and I had probably the best, military experience that I could imagine. I met my wife, met some of my closest friends, and transitioned out. So, uh,
Wow.
got out in 2021. To kind of pause there, and that's the journey of where tech sales started becoming an idea. So I knew that
Huh.
transitioning and getting out of the military, I was about 18 months out, and I hadn't completed my undergraduate degree yet. I was going to school full time and working in the military full time. And you know, I'll never forget. I went to University Incarnate Word in San Antonio, and I was in a elective class, and we were talking about influencing on social media platforms, and that's kind of like right around the era of TikTok really starting to blow up pre-COVID. And I watched one account go from 10,000 followers to like 1 million followers in like that mini semester that I had. And there was a guy, um, talking about tech sales, and he showed his W-2, uh, some information redacted, and I was like, "There's no way that you're making, 300, 400K not being a doctor or a lawyer or some sort of professional athlete." I said, "I've got to look into this a little bit more," and so I did. And
Wow.
yeah, and that was
Crazy.
start of the idea of like, how do I figure out how to get into that pinnacle arena,
Interesting.
if you will.
Interesting. So there's a lot of reasons why you go tech sales, right? And we're sellers, right? So one of
Yeah,
the biggest
yeah.
reasons is can you make
Motivated by
money, right?
money. We're motivated by money.
You're not gonna sell stuff you cannot make money. There's no way. So yeah, the possibilities, it's crazy. I personally know people who made over $1 million
Hmm.
in tech sales, and it's totally doable. Um, wow. So thanks so much, first of all, for
Yeah,
giving like the background. Amazing. Um, you tested the waters in sales prior to tech sales. You did all sorts of different things. In fact, you mentioned like one of the biggest, UPS kind of deals. So you were able to experience that. And a lot of people. No, first let's go first to the question, right? How, right, did you hack into tech sales after
yeah.
seeing the W-2 and getting all excited,
Oh yeah.
mindset, vision,
Oh
all that? How do I get it? Tell us a little bit more about the process of actually getting to the first tech sales job.
Absolutely. So the first process is I got on LinkedIn and I started looking at the tech sales jobs and requirements. I looked at job requirements, and I gotta say, shameless plug for veterans or persons of colors getting out. Oftentimes we will disqualify ourselves like immediately before we even think like, oh, maybe I got to have a PhD to apply to this job or something like that. And it's real simple. Like I was within 6 months of graduating. I had a mentor tell me, hey, if you're within 6 months, put completion date, on your resume for any job that has that barrier of that undergrad. Um, so then the military does a decent job in terms of preparing us a little bit or giving us access to some tools to transition out. But I came across this really, really, really cool app on LinkedIn, and it's called Veterati. And it connected me with three specific mentors, and two of which I'm still in contact with today. And the cool thing is, whether you're in the military or whether you're coming out of college, somebody has done what you're looking to do, and it's just a matter of finding those people, right? Like the best path traveled is one that's already been cleared, right? Like I can imagine back to hiking through the mountains or whatever, and there's like the path that's less traveled or the path that is well traveled. Like which one was going to be easier to get to that destination? Now you could argue if you want to be the trailblazer, that's okay, totally fine, but in my world, it was easier to just follow the footsteps of those who did it before me. So I got attached to three people, and it was really cool because the application asked you a series of questions of what you were looking to do when you got out, and or what you hope to do or what you aspire to do. And then once that happened, it gave you a recommendation of three people, and then the you would schedule a time block to give them a call, the app would call you first, you would pick up, the app would call them, and then it would merge the phone calls together. So you didn't have to give out personal information until you
Wow.
agreed to enter the mentor-mentee relationship. And to this day, I am profoundly impacted by that application itself and those three
Interesting.
gentlemen who picked up the call and talked to a young petty officer who was transitioning out, who thought his only path was to go, hang up one uniform and rifle for, one agency to go be a cop to another, and nothing against civil service or anything like that, but I had already been
Wow.
away, on a couple deployments, and my wife was like, "Hey, we got to figure out a way to where I'm not super worried about you when you leave."
Interesting. Wow. So was that free? The app was free?
The app was that's the crazy thing. It was completely free. And you just filled out, and then I guess the way to get back in that community was, when you land at your job or something like that, you would then become a mentor and help somebody else and help them do the same. So
That's crazy. I want to see if that's still is the. I don't know if the app's still active because I want to promote it. It sounds like it's really
so
cool.
so I can't we'll have to do that'll probably be another segue that we go into, but I
Yeah.
do know something happened. They didn't want that community to go away or the app to go away, but I do think that there was something that happened where I don't know if it's still going on now, or
Okay.
if they're still connecting people, or maybe they're just doing it via the website now. But yeah, it
Oh
was
wow.
it was great.
So I love that. And so you went. It's probably one of the first times that I hear. I interview a bunch of people already. There's different ways that people got into tech sales,
Mhm.
but you found mentors, a very specific app, a program that you're connected to mentors, and I'm pretty sure they, like you said, they travel the path, so they kind of show you the way. What exactly they tell you? Like,
Okay.
hey,
Yeah, I'll break it into you. So
yeah,
I'll put his name out there for one of them at least, because he was probably the
shout out, yeah.
most profound impact on me. Two. Actually, no, I'll give you all three. I'll start with Alex Dissinger. He is a U.S. Naval Academy grad, and he graciously gave his time on Veterati on a few occasions to connect with me. And, you know, I told him that I thought about sales, tech sales. I told him that I had aspirations of getting into it. And he told me that there was a company that he thought about that had a good veterans program, that if I
Mm,
really wanted to be a seller, that if I
that'd
could
be
last a year at this organization and do well there, then you would know if you really wanted to be in sales, right? So I'm thinking, okay,
yeah,
this is crazy. And he referred me to Gartner,
yeah.
and he connected me with a guy named Robert Washington. And
Oh man.
yeah, and Robert Washington, and I'm looking at these guys on LinkedIn, and I'm thinking, one guy's working at Salesforce, the other guy's working at Microsoft. Why are they going to tell me to go to Gartner? Like, they just left this place, right? And I'm thinking, like, why do I want to go somewhere that was left?
Boot camp. It's boot camp.
And honestly, it was probably the best decision I could make. So Rob ultimately gave me the referral. He was a little bit more closer to, I got to say, a fabulous recruiter that I had, Stephanie Pageant. Hats off to her. She's still there at Gartner. And the first RVP who took a chance on me, Davi Resende. They coached me through the way. It's a long process with Gartner. There's some role plays in it, and I felt like I was just fumbling my way through it. But the best advice I got from both Alex and the best advice I got from Rob and Kieran, um, they had all said, let somebody else tell you you can't do it,
Yeah.
and then find a way after that. But don't disqualify yourself because you see this big job description and you see prospecting, you see cold calling, you see forecasting,
Man.
aligning, all these things, CRM, ERP, like you don't even know what these things are. But I kind of looked at it as like my military career. I didn't know what it meant to be a corpsman, but I signed up, I joined, and I learned. And I was
Figure
able
it
to
out.
do
Yeah.
it. Right? So
Wow.
that was the initial path there.
Wow. Man, this program is like it's like the boot camp for tech sales, man. Because you're the third person that I interview, including Robert, that have been through the program. Jacob, you probably know Jacob too. Ended up, somehow in Microsoft. Like, I mean, we're talking about big organizations making good money,
Yes.
doing good job. I
Yeah.
I need to research more about this program and better promote Gardner's program, training program, because it sounds like it's a good pathway to
Yeah.
get into tech sales. How about the
Yeah.
interview process? Like, was how easy it was? Like, you just like you have was a recommendation, you applied. How about
Yeah.
yeah? Did you feel it was an easy transition?
No, I'll tell you. I think what really prepared me for that was the mentorship, right? Because as you and I speak right now, covering certain topics or explaining yourself, that's like probably like the biggest thing. And I can only say this specifically for veterans, right? That's the community that I know and love so much. It's like when we get out, how do we articulate, what is our value proposition to an organization to quote unquote, where I used to say take a chance on us, but it's not really taking a chance because like there's one thing that you're going to get with us. It's, there's going to be some resilience already there. There's going to be grit. We know how to do
Mhm.
hard things. We've worked in ambiguous environments. We've worked in austere environments. So there's a whole host of things that veterans bring to the table. And ultimately, working with the two mentors to say, hey, look, this is how your resume should look. Thanks to Kieran, shout out to him. Rob said, hey, you sound great, but you need to slow it down a little bit, be a little bit more
Mhm.
methodical on intentional on what you're speaking. And I'm not talking about filler words because we know that filler words has never broken a deal, but how do you articulate your skills that you have right now to be aligned to the job that you're going for, whether that's tech sales or anything else, right? How do you articulate your past experiences to that? And he kind of coached me through like maybe I had an operation that we had conducted overseas, and how did I sell my thoughts, my ideas pertaining to that particular plan? That's selling right there. That's influencing. Maybe I'm not selling with the end goal of a product or sales or a dollar amount, but I am selling like, hey, my team is ready for this particular mission, or these are the capabilities we have for combatant commanders to make a decision, right? So you want to be able to position like your skill set or what's available, for the overall mission, and then just reframing that for the same way for Gartner. Hey, I may not come with traditional sales background, but I have briefed, a number of high level executives, which would be the equivalents in the civilian world, and I know what that
Mhm.
executive presence and that professionalism looks like.
I love it. Transferable skills, like all the way. So just being coached on how to communicate those transferable skills. That's probably it because, like you said, all the soft we like to call soft skills. I don't like to call
Yeah,
soft skills
yeah,
because
yeah,
they're tough. They're
yeah,
hard.
yeah,
But everything else you had it, the grit, resilience, hard work,
yeah.
commitment, and then bring that, selling the hard skills of sales, uh, being able to translate that.
Yeah.
That was really good. Good advice
So
for mentors.
And to touch a little bit more on the interviewing process, it was the phone screen, right? So I had the phone screen with the recruiter, and then presented my resume as well. And it was a little bit more of a unique situation because I was using or the lifeline of that veteran program. So
Okay.
I think they took you fall into a window of did you do, 1 to 3 years in the military, 5 to 8, or anything plus 10. And I think that kind of where the metric of where they might bring you in at in terms of where you're going to be at. But
Mm,
I'll tell a story as to why I broke into tech sales, essentially with Gartner. And that was one thing that resonated with them a lot. I shared a story that I missed the birth of my second daughter. I was
mm,
deployed in the Middle East, and I was able to watch it only because of the technological advances we had in 2018 at the time, right? So I was able to be there for the birth of my daughter via a little, phone screen, not quite as big as the ones that are today, but through some Wi-Fi and some technology and a very, very selfless human being. My wife's phone dies immediately, like right when we were about to take
hey,
the baby, and there's not a dry eye from my squad mates who were there experiencing this with me, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm really going to miss this. And I get a call from a number in Dallas, and it's the nurse anesthesiologist, and I tell him, say, hey, I can't tell you exactly where I'm at, but this is going to be an international call. And he says, thank you for your service. I'm pretty sure I've got it covered. I've got some other babies to go deliver. Meet your baby girl and be with your wife on the phone. And just that spark, that technology, right? Like the means of to have that happen. I knew I wanted to be a part of technology in some way, shape, or form. Fast
wow.
forward that pivotal story to Gartner. I was applying for a global technology sales role. So now I'm, providing access to analysts and executive. Oh wow, Gartner's going to kill me right now. I can't remember what they're called, but the executive partner. The executive partner to help with those strategic, roadmaps for technology. And I just consumed as much knowledge as I could while I was in there to learn about different CRMs, ERPs, app development, software development lifecycle, and just hearing those challenges. I then set my sights on Microsoft and to really break into tech sales. But I got my chops and cut my teeth in foundational sales with Gartner. And I got to tell you, there's no second, there's no training that comes close to that, in my opinion.
Wow. Oh man, that story is amazing. And I during this presentation here, I don't know if you noticed, you probably told 2 or 3 stories already.
Yeah, yeah,
And storytelling is one of the skills, one of the best skills that you can develop as a tech seller, right? Just
exactly.
bringing stuff
Life.
to life,
Yeah,
because
you
we're
have to.
overloaded with information. I'll
Yeah,
never forget that story because you just said right now. And I have been the birth of my 4 kids, like
yeah,
live. I was
yeah,
able to be there helping my wife. So just thinking about missing that, man, it would be hard, right? So
yeah,
connected with you right there, and great story. And yeah, like technology, it's part of our lives, right? So if you
yeah.
find a way to relate and connect with people, your buyers and clients and all
Exactly.
that, that's amazing.
Exactly. And then I took a very targeted approach. Again, you use a mentor to get where you want to be. Rob Washington was at Microsoft, and there were some grumblings about maybe a position being open, and I started to kind of feverishly looking through the job board. But one tactic I used this time around that I didn't use the first time, which was getting into Gartner, I
Yes.
leveraged another tactic. I got a little bit more savvy on LinkedIn because of my time at Gartner and reaching out to prospects and white space.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what if I go to the people tag on Gartner or on Microsoft, and what if I put in manager? What if I put in manager business applications?
Okay.
And that was specifically the role that I was looking to get into. I looked up a manager, and then I kind of narrowed down the search of, was there anybody who went to the very, very, very small school that I went to? No, not really. Um, was there veterans? Okay, cool. Yeah, there's some veterans on there, so I reached out to them. But then there was
Mm,
one unique individual that I was able to reach out to, and I'm happy to say that she still is in contact with me today. Uh, a manager that I had at Microsoft. I reached out to her via LinkedIn, slid into the DMs, I think the kids say these days. And I said, hey, what's a Washingtonian doing out here in Texas? So there was a common bond. She was from Washington. I'd spent some time in Seattle, and it was a very, very hot summer. And I just sparked a conversation that way. And I treated that process just like my sales process from Gartner.
yes. I was just about to say, if you can find a way to get into Microsoft, those top, tech sales organizations, you're probably going to be a good seller
Yeah, yeah,
because the strategy that you use, being proactive and investigating and trying to find your ideal ICP, we like to
yeah,
call.
yeah, yeah,
That's how it goes, man. Good job. Congratulations.
yeah.
Leverage LinkedIn all the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've got to say, it was just, and I'll say a little luck helps. I don't like when people just say it's just hard work or it's just this. Like
No.
sometimes you just got to have a little bit of luck. I was lucky enough to find somebody who was from Washington that was in the business unit that I was going for. Right. So, but it took a little bit of hard work to get there. Right. I had to, think of a strategy. Okay, what would be the best way to get connected to this particular manager? Who
Yeah.
could I leverage? So, I'll leave a tip. I know that you had talked about a tip, but think
Yeah.
about your alumni network. I would very
Alumni.
first start there. For anybody who's like right out of college or anybody who's transitioning, right? Like maybe you've been in a career field for X amount of time and you're looking to transition into tech sales. Look at your alma mater. Uh,
That's cool.
Look at anybody who did your job that ended up in tech sales, right? So that might be something that could be easily overlooked. So let's say you were in mortgage and you go in there and you go to Microsoft, you hit people, type in mortgage and see what pops up. Maybe somebody had some sort of work
Interesting. I love that.
with that field, and then you could kind of leverage that, and because you have that common bond now. if you're a Duke Blue Devil, maybe you've got that bond, or you share something from being a Purdue grad, or Stanford grad, or all the top programs of the world. But it's still the same thing with no matter how big or how small your school is. That's where I would start first, because there's at least a common connection to that degree, and then be personable. And lastly, I would say you absolutely have to be yourself. There is no script that's going to get it. Just be authentic in what you're asking, no deception, and be forthright. There is no, hey, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. And then, oh, by the way, can you review my resume? No, come in there genuine. Hey, look, you're in the position that I'm looking to attain. I aspire to be in one day. I would love to be able to earn either your referral, or if you could spare 10 or 15 minutes to give me some tips or tricks on how to get into the role that you're in right there. That's up front. And then if you're in sales, you're going to get more no's and yeses. At the very least, you put the ball in their court, so they don't feel like there's any subterfuge of like you being interested in them only to gain something. You're coming with your ask immediately. And if they don't respond, it quickly disqualifies, and you move on to the next. And you have to have that kind of resilience to be in sales, and you got to treat getting the role like you would being in the role to do the job.
I love it, man. If you're listening to this right now, go back 5 minutes. You're gonna hear a masterclass with scripts and tips, very specific on how to outreach your potential network, connection to get into tech sales. Oh, I love this. Today I have a lot of questions. Still, we're running out of time here. Let's dive deeper. So, we talked about moving from Gartner to Microsoft, right? So you say you leverage LinkedIn, but how was the I don't know, maybe you said already, maybe I'm forgetting the process to get into Microsoft, the interview process and all that.
Yes.
So you talked about getting to Gartner. How did you hack into Microsoft?
So the Microsoft is interesting. They do a hiring loop, is essentially what they call it. And most sales roles, they conduct 3 interviews. One's going to be a behavior, one's going to be usually some sort of role play, and the other one would be potentially with your hiring manager or the manager that you may work with. And that's a little bit more of a behavior and kind of a little bit more to get to know you, I suspect. And I gotta say that was a pretty rigorous day. They're all scheduled on the same day, and you prep with a little bit of information ahead of time. And I think if I were to give any advice on that is don't get overwhelmed with what you do or don't know about the product. It certainly helps, especially in this climate where, the layoffs happen and then there's so much good talent out there trying to get back and, going. So you're up against some seasoned sellers. So yes, like learn the product the best you can. But I think they were probably more impressed with just how I ran the call and how curious I was on the call for that particular part of the loop, and then being authentic. And I'll never forget. It was a very unique situation. My daughter was homesick. She was 4 at the time, and it just did not work out. My wife got called into work. She's a lab technician, so she had to be there. And I've got my baby. She's sick. She doesn't feel good. And like right before the call, she just crawled into my lap. She crawled into my lap, and I have to conduct these interviews with my daughter in the lap. And I just, you got to think like somebody could be super, super, super embarrassed about something like that. But I just led with honesty and authenticity. I just said, hey, look, this just happened. I understand that maybe if you want to reschedule, great, but I'm going to have her in my arms, and I'm going to be able to still facilitate any of the questions that you have for me, and framing it in such a way that, kind of give them a peek of who I am. Because, I mean, with this virtual hybrid work from home, I mean, the lines of work and home are constantly being blurred, and that was just one of them. And that is one of the ones that to this day stands out in my mind in terms of that.
Wow.
But preparation was key. I don't think I would have been as comfortable with that scenario had I not already previously prepared and just been ready to go. So
yeah, just the way you described this, you sound super confident. You're ready. Like, I mean, have been in situations, in military. I mean, sometimes you just need to get stuff done, and there's no rescheduling.
There's no hesitation.
That's awesome. Man, and it's something I noticed with Microsoft too. I did a bunch of interviews before I got into Microsoft, like two, 3 rounds, and then the one that I got hired, on the past.
Mhm.
And people are nice.
Yeah.
All the interviews, they were nice. Like in one of the interviews, I totally bombed it. And the guy was like, "Hey, Davidson, maybe it's just not the right role. Maybe you can prepare a little bit more, reapply like a year from now. And maybe you should do this." It turned into like a coaching session.
Oh, absolutely.
I was like, "Thanks so much." They were super nice, and I'm glad you were able to have that experience. That's awesome, man. Like getting to those tech, some people disqualify themselves, right? They feel
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I'm not qualified already." Just give it a try. You never know.
Yeah. So many times, so many times. It's one of those things that, if you're going to be in sales, you have to be okay with hearing no. And then you got to be okay with hearing no and then still being persistent, right? Professionally persistent, right? So I like to say that maybe it's not a no, or maybe it is a no, but it might just be a not right now. You just flip that mindset, right? And it's all about the mindset, especially if you're in sales. If you wake up and you say, "Oh, I got a quota, I got this, I got to do all these things." If you just quickly change that to, "I get to have a quota, I get to go out here and crush this." I mean, not saying that your quota magically just gets filled, but it's easier to do those mundane tasks of
It's
the
part
cold
of it.
calls, the emails, the outreach. Um, I have this thing where I reframe a lot of what I did, and I learned that in the military. I think I put a post on it, but we would always complain about being in the field for an extended period of time for training, and you're just like, "Oh man, we're out
Tough.
here. It's hard. It's tough. It's hot. I got this gear." And one of my senior leaders had told me, he said, "Hey, be happy that you get to train. Be happy that you get to do this, because when we go down and we deploy, you don't want to be learning at that point in time. You want to be strictly proficient in what it is that your tasks are, right?" And not to get all like morbid on you or anything like that, but when you think about like sales, like, hey, we get to command this type of salary. So, and then your earning potential is almost unlimited depending on the product, the org that you're in. Like, we get to prospect, we get to make that phone call. We get to go after those wells, and and essentially you get to be a big fish in a small pond because of you built up your brand, whether that be on LinkedIn or just within your organization that you're working with, to drive those conversations forward. So I
Love
think a
it.
lot of it is mindset. So when you're looking at breaking into tech sales, it's not like, "Oh, I haven't made it yet." No, I get the challenge of getting in,
I
and
love it.
embrace that challenge. You get in, then you have that pretty cool story, and then you end up on the Tech Sales Funnel podcast as well, recounting your trials to get here.
Tell you a story. Man, we're getting close to the end here. That was a perfect closing though. Like I was gonna ask you to give a final advice for people who are like on the fence. But like for example, I had a friend last week, and she reached out and said like, "Hey, is tech sales hard?" I was like, "Well, you gotta choose your hard."
Yeah,
But it
yeah,
is probably hard.
yeah,
It is what it is. I tell people high risk, high return.
yeah,
It's People complain about layoffs. It's part of the industry. You just have to embrace for impact
yeah.
and be ready for it, right? So closing here, Ryan. That was amazing. That was one of the best podcasts so far. Seriously, I'm getting better. Maybe at listening,
Yeah. No,
asking questions. I don't know,
no, I'm
but
happy to be here, brother. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here. Hopefully, I'll be a returning guest here. Hopefully, I'll be a returning guest.
for sure, for sure. Tell us a little bit more, just to close. Like, what do you think about the future of tech sales? Why do tech sales and not just sales? And so we can close this podcast here today.
Yeah. In closing, I think tech sales is I don't have no crazy statistic from the Department of Labor or anything like that, but as we develop technology, and whether it's a physical platform or a SaaS platform, they're going to need somebody to sell that, right? And if you are fortunate enough to um, start the journey of getting onto tech sales or getting into tech sales, I think you can find it rewarding. But the biggest thing is, if you're considering sales and you want to go to tech sales, the money can be life changing. I'll tell you, my pay was, you can go on United States Navy.mil, and you can look up what an E5 in the military makes with 8 years in the military. You could see what that pay structure is. and I can tell you 3 times as much as what I make now, and the life I'm able to give my kids, my family, um, the freedom that you get with it, and then ultimately, you get to be at the forefront of technology in some cases, and you get to see real impact on businesses and end users. So if you're working on product, cool. Somebody's got to sell that product. Like the greatest iPhone didn't go to market well if they didn't have the good marketing team and some salespeople to help, you know, translate that engineering into the art of the possible. So I'll leave it with that. If you're on the fence, there's a reason you're looking. There's a reason you're unhappy, or maybe you don't want to be in the current role that you're in right now. I won't say the grass is always greener, but if you hop the fence and you water it, you'll eventually get some green grass. So go ahead and take that jump into tech sales for sure.
Love it. Thank you so much. Wow. Thank you so much. This is here, Ryan Weems. Thank you for your words and for your example, for serving your country, and for your life. It's definitely going to inspire a lot of people who listen to this call, to this podcast today. So we're closing. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Tech Sales Funnels podcast, where we crack the code and uncover the strategies to break into tech sales. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to hack their way into this exciting career. Remember, hacking into tech sales isn't just a goal, it's a mission. Let's keep hacking, learning, and winning together. Catch you next time.